The old wooden door of my house creaked open, mirroring the tired rhythm of my heart. I'd spent the entire day at the hospital with my son James, the sterile scent of disinfectant clinging to my sweater. My legs felt heavy, each step dragging an invisible boulder. My worn leather purse still hung from my shoulder, but I didn't even have time to set it down before Chloe, my daughter-in-law, swept into the living room. She was as light as a breeze, oblivious to the heaviness that filled our home. She wore a shiny Gucci silk dress, the kind I only ever saw on billboards. Her face was meticulously made up, lips a glossy red, false eyelashes long and curled. Her heels clicked against the tile floor, each step exuding an arrogant confidence. She held her phone, fingers flying across the screen, busy finding the best angle for a check-in post. I watched her toss her suitcase aside as if it were an obstacle, then gracefully sit on the sofa, crossing her legs and picking up a cup of coffee that had been cold since morning. A lopsided, self-satisfied smile played on her lips, as if the entire world belonged to her. I suppressed a sigh, trying to keep my voice soft, though exhaustion weighed on my chest. "Chloe, you're back already. Where have you been?" I asked, my voice hoarse, each word fighting its way out of my dry throat. Chloe leaned back on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone, not bothering to look at me. "Hawaii," she answered, her voice lazy, as if talking about a walk in the park. "It was incredible, Eleanor, much nicer than that stuffy hospital where you spend all your time." Her words cut through me like a knife. Hawaii. While James and I were fighting through the darkest days of our lives, she was in Hawaii, enjoying the sun and the blue sea. I stood frozen, feeling the ground crumble beneath my feet. My throat tightened. A wave of bitterness rose in me. But before I could say anything else, Chloe held out a gold credit card to me, gleaming under the living room light like an expensive jewel. "Thanks to your card," she said, her tone a mix of indifference and pride. "Don't worry, I only spent a little, barely $100,000. 100,000s. The number thundered in my head. I froze, my hands gripping the strap of my purse tightly. Like an uncontrollable reflex, I let out a harsh, bitter laugh that echoed in the quiet room. It wasn't a laugh of joy but of disbelief, of the pain of betrayal. $100,000, I repeated, my voice trembling. "Chloe, that card only has a limit of $10,000. Did you even look at the name on the card?" Chloe flinched. For a moment, I saw a flicker of confusion in her eyes, like a candle wavering in the wind. But she quickly regained her composure, swiftly putting the card away in her designer bag and taking a sip of coffee to hide her unease. The coffee was cold. I knew that for a fact because I had made it myself that morning before rushing to the hospital. Still, she feigned nonchalance, as if there was nothing to worry about. I sat down silently in the chair across from her. My legs were shaking, not from fatigue, but from the storm of emotions raging inside me. I took out my phone. My trembling fingers opened the banking app. With every tap on the screen, I felt my heart beat faster, as if trying to warn me of a truth I wasn't ready for. I'm going to show her the truth, I thought quietly. But deep down, I was afraid. Afraid that what I was about to discover would destroy what little trust I had left. The atmosphere in the room grew thick, heavy, as if the air had turned to lead. The only sound was the second hand of the wall clock ticking slowly, like a countdown before a bomb went off. Outside, from the quiet side street, came the faint sound of a car horn mixed with the wind seeping through the window. I was there facing Chloe, the daughter-in-law I once loved like a daughter, but now I only saw an impossible abyss between us. Just a few days ago, my life was still calm, without luxuries but full of love. James was always my pride, a noble, hard-working man, always smiling like the summer sun in Austin. But then, like an unexpected nightmare, everything changed in an instant. That day, I was in the kitchen chopping onions for the chili he loved so much. The sting of the onions made my eyes water, but I could still clearly hear the laughter coming from the living room. James was telling Chloe about a difficult client at his firm, his voice full of life, mixed with her soft laugh. I smiled, thinking that even if life was hard, as long as they were happy, I would be too. But suddenly, the laughter stopped. A heavy thud echoed, as if something had fallen hard to the floor. I dropped the knife and ran to the living room. My heart stopped when I saw James lying on the hardwood floor, his hand on his chest, his face turning blue, gasping for breath. "James!" I cried desperately, rushing to his side. Chloe was just standing there, her eyes wide, phone in hand, as if she didn't understand what was happening. "Chloe, call an ambulance, quick!" I shouted, kneeling beside James, gripping his hand with my trembling ones. His hand was freezing. Those fingers that were always so warm now felt lifeless. I pressed my ear to his chest, searching for the faint beat of his heart while I whispered, over and over again, "Son, don't leave me. Please don't leave me." Chloe finally snapped out of it, dialing frantically, her voice trembling as she spoke to the paramedic. In less than 10 minutes, the wail of the ambulance siren blared in front of our house. Between the two of us, we lifted James and got him inside. I held him tight, feeling that if I let go, I would lose him forever. In the vehicle, the flashing lights dazzled me. The siren pierced through my chest. I squeezed his hand, praying with all the faith I had left, begging God not to take my son. Beside me, Chloe huddled, but her eyes remained fixed on her phone. Through my sobs, I heard her mutter with irritation, "No, I can't go now. That plan will have to wait. Don't you understand, Iz?" Her voice trailed off, but I no longer cared. My entire focus was on James, clinging to every shallow breath he managed to take. The ambulance screeched to a halt in front of the main county hospital. Nurses quickly wheeled James into the emergency room, and the glass door slammed shut in front of me. I stood there, helpless, watching the gurney disappear down the hall. A young doctor, his hair matted with sweat, rushed out and shouted, "Acute myocardial infarction. We need to operate immediately." Those words hit me like a sledgehammer. I stumbled and had to lean against the cold wall to keep from falling. Chloe collapsed onto the chairs in the hallway, tears streaming down her cheeks. But even as she cried, she kept glancing at her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. The next few days were a blur of hospital corridors, hushed whispers, and the constant fear of losing James. The medical bills piled up faster than I could comprehend. My savings were quickly depleted. I had no choice but to open a new credit card, a high-limit one, to cover the mounting costs of James's emergency surgery and ongoing care. It was a card I never intended to use for anything but saving my son's life. During those harrowing days, Chloe was rarely by our side. She would visit for an hour or two, always impeccably dressed, then disappear with some excuse about needing to clear her head. I was too consumed with James to question her much. I just prayed she was finding some way to cope. Now, sitting across from her, the truth of my banking app was staring back at me. My new credit card, the one with the $10,000 limit, had a balance of 0. It hadn't been touched. But there was another card listed, a corporate card linked to James's company, and it showed a staggering balance of $100,000. It was a card I didn't even know existed, let alone had access to. "Chloe," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "this isn't my card. This is James's company card, and it shows a balance of $100,000. Her face went pale. The self-satisfied smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure panic. She stammered, I don't understand. I thought it was yours." I looked at her, my heart aching. "How could you think that? My name isn't on it, and my card has a $10,000 limit, not $100,000. She started to cry, real tears this time, not the performative kind. "Eleanor, I swear I didn't know. I went to James's office to pick up some papers, and I saw a shiny gold card on the floor, identical to yours. I thought it was the one I had taken and dropped without realizing, so I picked it up and put it in my wallet. I swear, Eleanor, I didn't know it was the company card," she pleaded. "I thought it was yours. That's why I used it without thinking. 5-star hotels, parties, jewelry. I thought I was spending your money, and I didn't stop." She lowered her head, clenching her hands so tightly her nails dug into her skin. "But today my boss called me. They found out everything. They said I spent $100,000 on the company card. They called the police, Eleanor. They said I'm going to be prosecuted, that I might even go to jail." I sat across from her, my heart as heavy as lead. Her confession didn't surprise me, but each word was like a blade cutting me from the inside. I had loved her like a daughter. I had believed she would be the woman to make James happy. But now, seeing her there trembling and crying, all I saw was a stranger, someone who had not only betrayed her husband, but also my deepest trust. Chloe crawled over to me. She grabbed my hand tightly. Tears streamed down her face. "Eleanor, save me," she cried, her voice broken. "Only you can save me. I don't want to go to jail, Eleanor. I'm begging you. Help me." Her hands squeezed mine, cold and trembling, as if I were her last lifeline. I looked into her eyes. Those shimmering tears couldn't hide the selfishness behind them. I sighed and gently pulled my hands away. "I don't have $100,000, Chloe," I said in a calm but firm voice. "And even if I did, this is the price you have to pay for your actions. You were the one who chose this path, not me." Hearing this, Chloe's expression changed instantly. The tears still fell, but a flicker of resentment appeared in her eyes. She shot up, her voice harsh, almost screaming. "You've never considered me part of this family. If you would just co-sign for me, they would let me go. You want to abandon me? Fine. Don't regret it later." She slapped my hand away, and her words, sharp as blades, cut into my already fractured heart. Without waiting for my reply, Chloe ran upstairs and slammed a door. The sharp click of the lock was like the final end to a painful chapter. I stood there in silence, listening to her sobs drift down from the room, mixed with the constant call of the ice cream truck from Mrs. Peterson's route down the street. That everyday sound, once a part of this home's peace, now only filled me with sadness. It contrasted sharply with the hurricane that had just erupted, leaving me alone among the broken pieces of my family. The next morning, I got up early and packed a basket of food for James, a pot of hot chicken soup, some biscuits wrapped in foil, and a carton of the orange juice my son always liked. I wanted to bring him a little warmth from home, hoping those familiar flavors would make him feel closer to his family, even just a little. Amidst those cold days in the hospital, every time I wrapped a biscuit, I remembered those nights when James would sit at the kitchen table, eating while telling me about his day at work, his eyes shining like a child's. But now those memories just weighed heavier on my heart. I took the basket and went out to the yard, ready to go to the hospital. As soon as I opened the iron gate with its usual creak, I saw Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor who sold popsicles from her cart, passing by. She stopped, looked at me with her kind eyes, but her gaze held a hint of hesitation, as if she didn't know whether she should speak. "Eleanor," she said hesitantly, "there's something that's been bothering me, and I don't know if I should tell you." I stood still, feeling the basket grow heavier in my hands. "What is it, Mrs. Peterson?" I asked softly. Although a bad feeling was already starting to grow inside me, I knew she wasn't one to gossip, so if she was speaking up, it had to be important. She lowered her voice, whispering as if afraid someone might hear. "Last week, I went to the mall to buy a few things. By chance, I saw your daughter-in-law, Chloe. She was with a young man very elegant, with slicked back hair and a watch that sparkled. Chloe was holding his arm, laughing and calling him honey, as if they were a real couple." She paused, looking at me with compassionate eyes. There was also a couple our age with them. They went into a jewelry store, and the woman was pointing at diamond necklaces and rings. But what I saw was that it was always Chloe who took out the card to pay. Every word from Mrs. Peterson landed like a hammer blow to my chest. I stood still, feeling the air around me suddenly turn thick, impossible to breathe. The image of Chloe in the live video from Hawaii flashed clearly in my mind. Her radiant smile, the way she hung on the arm of an older couple and called them Mom and Dad, and the young man who hugged her by the waist and gave her a kiss on the cheek amidst the cheers of the crowd. I had tried to ignore it, to convince myself that maybe I had misinterpreted it. But now Mrs. Peterson's words were like a sharp knife, shattering any illusion I had left. "Mrs. Peterson, are you sure?" I asked with a trembling voice, though deep down I already knew the answer. I took out my phone. My fingers shook as I reopened the video Chloe had posted. Her image on the beach in Hawaii appeared with that arrogant smile and eyes shining under the sun. I showed the phone to Mrs. Peterson. My heart pounded in my chest. These are the ones you saw, right, Mrs.?" Peterson squinted to get a better look and then nodded slowly. "Yes, Eleanor, that's them, the young man and the older couple. They were all together." The world spun around me. It wasn't just embezzlement. It was a calculated deception, a double life. Chloe wasn't just a careless spender. She was a con artist, using James's company card to fund a lavish lifestyle with another family. The mom and dad in the video, the honey in the mall, they were all part of her elaborate scheme. My son lying in a hospital bed, almost dying, while his wife was living a fantasy, betraying him in the cruelest way imaginable. I thanked Mrs. Peterson, my voice barely audible, and hurried to the hospital. I needed to tell James, but how could I break his heart again? He was still recovering, still fragile, but I knew I couldn't keep this from him. The truth, however painful, was necessary. I found James awake, looking a little stronger. He smiled weakly when he saw the basket of food. "Mom, you didn't have to," he said, his voice still a bit raspy. "Of course I did, son," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. I sat beside him, taking his hand. "James, there's something I need to tell you. It's about Chloe." His smile faded. He looked at me, sensing the gravity in my tone. I told him everything. About the company card, the $100,000, and Mrs. Peterson's sighting at the mall. I showed him the video, pointing out the young man and the older couple. As I spoke, James's face grew paler and paler. His eyes, usually so full of warmth, turned cold and distant. He looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen, as if trying to reconcile the woman he married with the stranger on the beach. When I finished, he lay there in silence, his hand still in mine, but his grip had tightened almost painfully. A single tear rolled down his cheek. She used my company card?" he whispered, his voice broken. While I was fighting for my life. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He closed his eyes, a deep sigh escaping his lips. "I can't believe it," he said, his voice barely audible. "All this time, I thought she was just overwhelmed. I thought she was scared." The next few weeks were agonizing. James initiated divorce proceedings from his hospital bed. The company, alerted by my findings, pressed charges against Chloe for embezzlement. The legal battles were draining, but James, fueled by a quiet resolve, was determined to see justice served. He was hurt, deeply betrayed, but also incredibly strong. He chose to face the truth, no matter how much it shattered his world. The day of the court hearing arrived. Chloe's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, claiming she was naive and manipulated. My client was the victim of a romantic deception, he argued. She didn't know the card belonged to the company and was manipulated by these con artists. But those words faded into nothing. The prosecutor immediately refuted them, pointing out that Chloe took the card on purpose, used it without any restraint, and that her actions had not only broken the law, but also caused serious damage to the company. When the judge asked James if he wanted to say anything, my son stood up, his tall frame trembling slightly. He looked directly at Chloe with eyes that held no trace of affection, only an icy firmness. "I have nothing more to say," he said, his voice calm but sharp as a razor. "I lost a wife, but at least I'm left with my dignity and my mother's." His words echoed in the courtroom, brief but heavy, silencing the entire room. I saw Chloe lower her head, clenching her hands tightly, as if wanting to escape James's gaze. The final verdict was delivered. The judge found Chloe guilty of embezzlement, sentenced her to 3 years in prison, and ordered her to repay the $100,000. At that moment, Chloe collapsed in her chair, screaming in desperation. Her sobs bounced off the flashes of reporters' cameras. "No, please, I don't want to go to prison," she cried. But no one in the room showed any sympathy. I looked at her and no longer felt anger, only a deep sadness. She had destroyed her own life and now had to pay the price. I took James's hand and led him outside. The noise of the courtroom, closed screams, the murmurs of the audience faded behind us. We walked out the courthouse doors and the radiant midday sun bathed us in a warm, clear light. I took a deep breath, my chest feeling light, as if an invisible weight had been lifted. James looked at me and managed a faint smile. "Mom, we did the right thing, didn't we?" he asked in a subdued voice. "Yes, son," I replied, squeezing his hand. "We chose the truth even though it hurt." I knew James was still hurting, but I also saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes, a new strength to move forward. Back in our modest home, I went into the kitchen, turned on the stove, and started making a hot chicken soup. The smell of sauté onions, chicken, and vegetables spread, bringing back memories of the quiet days before the storm. James sat at the table, watching me in silence with a softer look, as if he had reclaimed a part of himself. I placed the bowl of soup in front of him and smiled. "Eat, son," I said. "I made it just how you like it." The two of us ate together in a strange but comforting peace. The sound of spoons against bowls, the wind rustling the leaves of the oak tree in the yard. Everything seemed to blend into a gentle melody that healed our wounds. I looked at James, then out at the yard where the sun filtered through the branches, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. In that moment, I thought, sometimes the one who destroys a family is the same person we once loved. But the truth, however cruel, always ends up giving us back our freedom. I put my hand on James's shoulder, feeling the warmth of my son. Although the road ahead would still be difficult, I knew we would get through it because we had each other. And in that small house, amid simple meals and old memories, I found a spark of light, the light of hope, of healing, and of a new beginning. From everything I've lived through, I want to leave a message for everyone. In life, the most painful wounds don't always come from strangers, but from those we trust and love the most. But the truth, however harsh, is the only remedy that frees us from the darkness of lies. Only by facing it can we regain our peace and freedom of soul. Therefore, never blindly trust appearances or sweet words. Learn to protect your boundaries and your dignity, because justice and truth in the end always bring back the light to move forward. The story you have just heard has had names and places changed to protect the identities of the people involved. We don't tell this to judge, but in the hope that someone will listen and stop to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence within their own homes? I really wonder if you were in my shoes. What would you do? Would you choose to stay silent to keep the peace, or would you dare to face it all to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light someone else's path. God always blesses, and I am convinced that courage leads us to better days. In the meantime, on the end screen, I'm leaving you two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.